Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas. Welcome to this edition of Wide Angle with Ashok Vyas. And I have the pleasure and joy of welcoming someone who I have known for many years, but not as a creative writer as she has become. And now, what I would like to mention before I welcome Manisha Sharma is that her short story is longlisted for 2021 Commonwealth Short Story Prize. Her poetry book manuscript, The Vanishing Girls of India, has been shortlisted for the Laureate Prize by Harbour Editions. She's finalist for the Cream City Reviews 2020 Summer Fiction, and there are a couple of more information. I'll just skip that because I don't want you to be waiting for this young lady, as I would say, joining us from DC right now. Welcome, Manisha. How are you?
Namaskar. Thank you so much.
So we walk with you, and as I mentioned, I've seen you the days when you were learning yoga yourself, and you were also helping others learn in the city Jodhpur, and that was camp by Vivekanand Kendra. So let us start your journey from that point onwards in terms of your relationship and understanding of yoga and its importance in your life.
Yeah, I started yoga when I had just graduated from high school, and I was an extremely shy individual then, which is not the case now. So I wasn't in the hip crowd of the school where you're participating in dances and or like are very good at athletics. So we had a speaker come to our morning assembly one day, and I was just sold by his charismatic um, behavior and how he spoke. And so at that point, I guess like yoga had started to become that new craze, and I decided to explore it. I did it, I liked it. I was extremely skinny at the time, 40 pounds lighter. So there was nothing my body could not do. And when you start garnering like a lot of praise at the ripe age of 17, I guess it throws you like in the cloud and you're suspended in the cloud always. So there was some kind of validation that I had never experienced before. So I guess that kept me going. And
Okay,
yeah, that's how it began.
let me hold you here for a moment. And I remember that you are referring to Mukul Kanikar from Vivekanand Kendra, and you also remember the arrival and Nagendraji conducting SMAT program in Jodhpur those days, and you were very active following them and learning about yoga. So it also helped you in some significant way, overcoming some of the physical, call it challenges or problems that you are facing. Talk to us about that also.
Definitely. So I had my first epileptic seizure when I was 4 years old. And since then, I had been visiting the best doctors in India and was on medication. So from 4 to now we are talking about 17 years old. And right after I started like practicing yoga, and within a month, it so happened that I had to teach a class. There was no option. So I did it and it carried on. And at that point, Dr. H.R. Nagendra, who works on evidence-based yoga and has been doing a lot of medical research on yoga. So he came there because he was the person who conducted like yoga research and inclusion of yoga in Vivekanand Kendra at that time. So he came to Jodhpur and he did a 2-day workshop called Self-Management of Excessive Tension. And when I read about it, it had a explanation like if you practice this particular if you practice SMET, it can take care of even psychosomatic diseases like epilepsy, which really attracted me. And so I decided to enroll in that because I was also like volunteering for the institution at that point. So I got some discount and I had to just pay for the text material. I did that. And I mean, like my mind and body already liked the practice of yoga. So there was no convincing that needed to be done. But I practiced it and I realized that I did not have any seizures for the next couple of years.
So that
So that was like okay, because I'm doing this, it is doing something to my brain that I am not getting any epileptic seizures. So that was like the best time of, I guess more than me, it was for my parents who were extremely worried raising a girl in India and with like epilepsy can present a lot of challenges.
Okay,
So
so Manisha, let me also come to the other side of your interest, which relates to English literature. And PhD in English literature generally is not very in thing. Actually, people even now, when they look for career, etc., literature is something which one would pursue if there is sincere interest, inclination, and love for literature. So, talk to me about your love for literature and what led you to do PhD in English, and what was your focus as PhD student?
So sometimes, like, we think everything should be rosy and good, and we should have enough money, everything should be comfortable. When you are like cushioned like that, you like if somebody exposes you to the elements, you will be dead. So by like using that analogy, let me say that when I grew up, it wasn't always like easy. There were a lot of struggles in my family, financial struggles to start with. And that itself can be a huge thing for like a 10, 11-year old. Since 10 years old, I had seen my father like struggle a lot financially. So, I mean, every person, I believe, like needs some kind of an outlet when you're surrounded with struggle. And I happened to visit the library in my school. This was in eighth grade. And I remember like just reading all of Shakespeare that was available there. I'm not really sure if I understood anything, but because it was written in meter, iambic pentameter, I believe is what Shakespeare writes in, it just sounded very rhythmic. And I kind of liked it. So I read all of that. All my counterparts at that point in eighth and ninth were reading Mills and Boons, which was
Yeah, Milton Woons were popular. I was just thinking, what was it? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I finished all of Shakespeare. So I guess that kind of kindled my interest in literature. And I, as a student, as an individual, I literally blossomed in like my high school, last 2 years of my high school, where I had a different set of individuals in class, different peers. And somehow like it felt to me that it was a new beginning. And I was like starting from a clean slate, a tabula rasa, if you would say.
Okay, so
So
let me see. Was it Shakespeare who somewhere inspired you to express yourself through poems, or your poetry journey of expressing yourself through poems began later?
yes, it did begin later. And I kind of like after I'm 46 now. So after having gone through pretty much like, half a century of your life, there are things you understand that it could be Shakespeare, it could be Kalidas. And yes, we can put them in these strict boundaries of a particular country and boost our ego that, hey, this is the person from here. It's actually all the same, is what I believe. So the first time,
No,
like
no, no. I have to understand what you just said, and it's not a matter of ego but it's a matter of pride that you come from that cultural heritage or literary heritage which gave, say, Kalidas, or if you are from Britain or European country, you would take more pride in being sort of from the same space where Shakespeare walked. So I don't look at it as an expression of ego. I look at it as a natural extension and strength to your self-esteem by owning what is precious. So that is a different view point on especially Kalidas. But again, another question which directly relates to you: how can you say it is all the same? Because they come with different sensibility, and apart from language, also the vision of life which is being conveyed may have some specific nuances. So, but I understand you must have seen something deeper than or different way than what I am sort of giving
so
the outline for. Yeah.
let me like talk about this with respect to yoga. And most people have now like done some form of yoga or experienced some form of relaxation primarily like at the end of Shavasana or after an hour-long practice. And when you are in that final state of Shavasana where literally every single thought just stops, there is nothing going on. That depending on your level of consciousness, your breath can also stop. So at that moment, whether I'm practicing anywhere in the world, it's going to be the same emotion. So what I was trying to reach at is that I might call truth something else, you might call truth something else, or reality something else, but the reality is universal. That is what I was trying to reach at. So like I have not read a whole lot of Hindi literature or even from my native tongue, Marwari, but I do know some. And like if you go deeper and deeper and try to look at the feeling behind it or where does it rise from, I think that there are only a few basic things that everyone talks about. They talk about it very differently. And that's what I was trying to reach at when I said that, all great writers it's the same thing that they are saying, but they're saying it differently.
I hear you now, and I think creativity is unifying, is said by one brand guru, Kiranji, also. Plus, it is the experience of most of the creative beings that they feel a sense of oneness, and many times you have this sense of impersonalization in the poetry, whether your English literature, what is his name, George Eliot? So, coming back to your poetry now and connecting it with, sometimes you are, if not puzzled, you are in a state of helplessness, in a state of frustration. And then also poetry, the seed of poetry is found by one creative being. So will that expression also have some resonance with this unifying element in the creativity or not? Say something about that and then share one or two of your poems, please.
I think you like hit the nail at the right spot. It's like, if you look at it, so I mean, there are poems that I read and I write where like my rational mind just doesn't want to engage in like explaining it in a way that you would a prose piece. So the way I understand poetry and the way like I wrote my first poem, which was 2 years after I started reading classical literature in 10th grade, which is when I was writing a poem. And the poem came out of, it was like, you have a door in front of you and that is shut. You have nowhere to go. Now you could go either way. You could like kill yourself because you're so frustrated and there is nothing happening, or you can be engaged into something else. So in my case at that point, what came out, and I'm saying like what came out, it literally came out, was poetry. Mm-hmm. Neither was I thinking. I think your rational mind, and this is all just my experience, your rational mind or my rational mind was completely unengaged. And like there are writers like Aurobindo, when he wrote Savitri, he said that I had no control over my thoughts. My thoughts were racing so fast. And I guess like we can even divorce the word my from there. The thoughts were racing so fast and I was just an instrument who was penning down those thoughts as quickly as I could. So I guess like, when we divorce ourselves from that process and let the process work, that is when poetry comes out. And as you said that very, very nicely that, we read and we don't really understand, but maybe we feel on a certain level.
I think very well said. And I just want to quickly share my side on this. So there are some spiritually evolved beings, they also say that they are just a medium, and if we refer from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, then also Nimitta Matra Bhava Savya Sachin is the message coming from Lord Krishna. And let us look at life as an art and everyone as an artist. Then each one is a medium, but each one medium expressing will have his her own limitations, specific elements, etc. Now, jumping towards your formal study of creative writing here in America, MFA in literature you did, right? Masters of Fine Arts.
MFA in creative writing and PhD in literature.
Oh wow! So before we come to this study, why don't you share any of your poem?
So this one might be like more like conversation, but I thought this will speak more to where I'm from. So in 1998 in Devra, Rajasthan, came into news big time, and I think BBC also did a feature on it, where like girls were killed as soon as they were born, but there was this one girl that survived, and after 20 years she was married. So it became a huge news piece at that time. And I had read it while I was still in India, and it was sitting somewhere in the back of my mind. It's just like, so when I started working on my poetry, I knew that I had to write a poem about it. And it took a very long time to like to where it is right now. So I'm just going to read that poem.
Please,
It's called Jayant Kavar, Devra, Rajasthan, 1998. In the village of Devra, daughters are killed as soon as they are born. It was a miracle when in a century, the first girl that survived was married 2 decades later. Girls in Devra emerge like gray hair. You kill all. With your groom tonight, you will embark on a new journey, Jayant. But before you leave, Devra on my feeble shoulders, let me, with my hands, feel your face, look into the eyes of the first bride in 2 decades, Jayant Kavar. You are surrounded by ever-shifting graves of dead infant girls. Under sand dunes, angry wind gusts form and reform every night. Buried girls cry a sharp cry, turning my ears deaf. Jayant, the desert your groom is crossing on a tasseled camel right now is the same desert that soaks sanguine with the blood of Devra girls. You lived without a single scratch, Jayant. I kept you safe. From the old turbaned man, your grandfather, from being crushed under the wooden charpai leg, from it being stained red like wet brick. Did I keep you safe? No, Jayant. You owe your life to my 3 stillborn sons that came ahead of you and filled my insides with courage up to the brim. Promise me you will never toss gender away like marbles in a glass jar.
Wow. Very, very powerful poem, powerful imagery, and it, in spite of all the sadness there is some beauty which is a part of poetic expression. So, very, very good poem. Congratulations on expressing such an important, if we say it issue, it takes away that resonance on sensitive level. But now, before we talk about your formal study of creative writing, what did PhD taught you about English literature, which you felt like a discovery or a special satisfaction of studying, doing your PhD?
Yeah, let me just preface this by saying that when you are surrounded by struggle, and this is I speaking from my experience, you look for that niche where you can be immersed in and be kind of complete, sort of a sense, like you're happy there, your happy place, which is what for me was school, which is kind of surprising for kids to hear now, but it was. So I just loved the study of like literature, which I continued in 11th and 12th grade. And there was not much thinking behind it, like why was I doing a PhD? And I guess like my parents, none of them literally forced me like how cliched version of like, Indian parents, people say they will like force them to be doctors and engineers. That nothing of that sort was ever there. And like do whatever you want. And in the back of my mind, I think that because of my history with epilepsy, my parents did not force me to do anything at all.
Was it effective being a student here for MFA creative writing?
I think it was definitely because
So, as a poet, what did it give you?
so that is quite interesting that my MFA was not in poetry, and my MFA was actually in fiction writing. But the first thing that I ever wrote in creative writing was poetry, and I believe just like my views about other things, you can learn to write drama, you can learn to write poetry, you can learn to write fiction, but that should not be binding you to that particular genre. I think it's what is important is that you know how to write. If you know how to write, you can write anything and anywhere.
That's beautifully said. And Manisha, we didn't get a chance to learn more about your yoga forte, and you have taught yoga. You are also teaching online. But talk to me your understanding of yoga. Do you think it also synergizes somewhere with the poet in you?
I think everything is connected with yoga because yoga is not just an asana or practice, it's the way you lead your life. And I think writing is a part of my life that is somehow directing how I do things. Similarly, driving my car or eating my food or talking to my children, to my students, everything has to be yoga'd, is how I would say. And this is a verb that I just coined yesterday when I was writing something about yoga. So everything has to have a foundation. If there is no foundation, there are no roots, then what we are talking about is fluff, which is just like lying on the surface, and that can vanish anytime.
Absolutely. So, vanish, what is your favorite? I think there is some anthology that also have this title, Vanishing.
Yes.
So, what is the final poem today that you are sharing with us?
Yes. Just give me 1 second. Okay. This is called Jaisalmer Yellow. Sandstone fort yellow, camels yellow, infant girls yellow. Each night, sand transforms space yellow. Book page yellow, cellophane yellow, wall paint straw yellow, bubbling in a glass beer yellow, drinking water yellow, mangoes jaggery yellow, color of skin yellow, storm slapping face calcium yellow, whites of eyes pneumonia yellow, dried sweat marigold yellow, dehydrated bodies pea yellow. The bones of Jaisalmer take on every yellow. We've become yellow blind, so much yellow.
Wow. So much yellow. And as we conclude, once again, I want to congratulate you on the wonderful work which has drawn attention of people and authorities towards the problem of feticide. And overall, your journey also demonstrate a continuity of connecting with inner strength through yoga and poetry both, with lots and lots of good wishes. Anything that you would like to say to the Manisha who you see about 40 years ago as a child, if there was a moment to have a dialogue with that 10-year-old Manisha, what would you say?
Such a big question. I guess I would say that I should have listened to my parents more. That is the only regret I have.
Yeah. So I think that's a very smart way now. Rather than telling to that Manisha, looks like you are telling this to your child. Or any parent who would say that listen to your parents, and that's not wrong. So on that note, with lots and lots of good wishes and congratulations, Manisha. So
Thank you
Manisha,
so much, Ashokji. Wonderful catching up with you.
thank you. So we got the opportunity of learning about journey, about life, about wholesome, sensitive, absorbing perception of creative being, Manisha Sharma today. Thanking her with lots of good wishes and thanking all of you for being a part of this wonderful conversation. This is Ashok Vyas.